Anyone?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Planning Department hasn't received any complaints regarding the region's work on St. John's.
Oh, I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Anyone else want to, where are we going on this? Councillor Maracas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll try something out, and I'd like to put an amendment forward similar to the mayor's, but for the trees on the golf course. I'd like to throw out an option that staff mimic Markham's bylaw as it speaks to the trees on golf courses, and bring that back in the draft bylaw. And as I mentioned, Markham speaks specifically, actually if I could get a seconder, I'll speak to that amendment. Thank you.
What is the amendment? So the
to mimic, for staff to come back with an option that mimics Markham's bylaws when it speaks specifically to trees on the golf course.
Is there a better word than mimic?
Well, if there is, sure.
Much. Okay. We'll put in a better word, Councillor. And Councillor Gardner will second that.
It's section 4.2. Tree bylaw, Markham's tree bylaw. Oh, do you want me to give you the actual number? Okay, one sec. Bylaw 2008-96. Tree preservation bylaw to regulate or prohibit the injury or destruction of trees within the town of Markham. Yes, I will read you what it says too, sure.
Mr. Clerk? Excuse me, Councillor.
I apologize. I do just want to confirm that the amendment is the first part of the mayor's amendment, that staff report back with additional substantially in the form of with the following change.
Yes. Thank you. So their bylaw speaks more to a tree management plan, where such a tree management plan has been approved by the administrator and a permit for the plan has been issued. A permit for the injury or destruction of any individual tree within the plan area shall not be required. So now there is certain instances where it's not required, but they set forth a management plan, and so they're not fully exempt, which I think is a great policy. And for myself, I look at Markham and I see that, you know, off the top of my head, I can think of 7 golf courses that they have, and they're not affected by Markham's bylaws. So I don't see why we can't institute something very similar that would at least have that management plan in place where we can look at it, possibly add in a compensation policy, you know, you know, and I know that might be somewhat restrictive, but that's why we can look at that and have it come back. But I think what Markham has done is an excellent example of looking to manage the tree preservation within their municipality, and I think it's something we can kind of mimic and go forward with.
That's the first thing that's made sense. Any comments, questions, apart from mine? Councillor Gardner?
Well, I've just seconded a motion that an amendment that I really know nothing about, only that I know that Markham is an environmental leader. But before, it would be wise if we as a council could receive this bylaw to look at before the council meeting, before it goes forward, because we have no idea what we're voting on.
I agree.
So do I need to make an amendment to the amendment or an addition?
Mr. Clerk, what should we do here?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could clarify, is the councillor suggesting that you'd want to see the draft bylaw incorporating these amendments prior to consideration at council meeting? That's already by virtue of how the motion is phrased, what would happen, because it is that staff report back on a revised draft tree bylaw substantially in the form of with these following changes.
Except that this is a big change because we're talking about a management. This is a big change because we're talking about a management plan, not.
Do you want me to go to the director?
Yes, please. Mr.
Downey?
I'm sorry, I apologize, but if I could have everyone turn to page 24, please.
24 of the agenda.
Please.
It says draft planning application permit approved subject to condition.
So if you look at 9.7A,
Yes.
we already have that condition within the draft bylaw, so it's somewhat of a moot point. We've already identified that a vegetative management plan may be required with regards to an application. We have already taken the practices of Markham into effect and felt that a management plan may be requested as part of their development as part of their permit application.
Yes. Councillor Marakis, ask your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to Mr. Downey, does that apply to golf courses specifically? Because I'm quickly looking through this and I don't see where it mentions golf courses. I'm specifically speaking to golf courses.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it will apply to all people who are required to submit permits, including golf courses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor?
Just to follow up, but under our current protection bylaw, golf courses are exempt. Or okay, I'll let Councillor Humphreys go on.
Councillor Humphreys?
So here's why this is confusing. If the draft bylaw was to be accepted, voted on, if you look on trees on golf courses back to page 8.
Page 8?
The first recommendation by staff is golf courses must obtain a tree removal permit for the removal of 11 or more trees in a 12-month period. That's the first option recommendation from staff. Then that comes into effect, right?
Councillor Marakis?
Sorry, yeah, Mr. Chair, and while I understand that, what I'm trying to say with this amendment is that I don't agree with that. I prefer that we do what Markham's doing overall, which is not restricting the amount. What we're saying is come forward with a management plan and work with us. And I think that's a better strategy.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree. Okay, we're talking about the amendment, seconded by Councillor Gardner. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Tom?
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I find it's just so hard to vote on something I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen the Markham.
I think what we're asking is staff come back with that.
Oh, okay.
To have a look at it.
Okay.
Before we do it. So we're actually sending this back to staff, Mr. Clerk, and to have another look at this again. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So that means that as a council, we're going to have 3 days possibly to look at this.
No, I don't think so, Councillor
Because it'll be
Gardner.
before the council meeting, so we won't get the agenda.
I think if I see it right, we'll go to council next week and we'll refer it back and we'll see this come back at another time.
Okay.
I'll ask the clerk to clarify.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, assuming this amendment is adopted here and then ratified at council next week, staff would be required to report back at a future meeting, be it a general committee or council meeting, incorporating any of these changes for final approval before the bylaw would be going forward. That's the wording of the amendment before us.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor?
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Deputy, so then my understanding is that it will be Markham's golf course management plan will be on the agenda for us to look at for next week?
Incorrect. Next GC. Or later.
Well, then how, how will we know for the next council meeting whether we want to stay with this option, the draft as it is, or?
Councillor Gardner, I think what we would do is we would go to council with this amendment, and at council we would say we're going to get a look at Markham's and come back at another time.
Thank you. I would ask Councillor Marakis to forward me a copy of that, and perhaps to the rest of council.
And staff? Thank you. Any further comments on the amendment? Councillor Thompson?
Just quickly to clarify, so the amendment not only mimics what Markham has in place, but it removes the number of trees that a golf course is allowed. As long as the management plan is approved by council or the director, they can remove as many trees as they want. Is that what it states?
There are guidelines. Councillor Maracas?
There are certain guidelines where they would still have to, it goes into a little bit in depth, and that's why it would be great for everyone to look at it, and I will forward it to everyone, a copy of the bylaw, and it does state that there would be instances where there would be a permit required. So, but there are instances where it's not. So it's a little bit restrictive, yet it's not fully restrictive, and I think it's a good way, a good first step for us to move forward and take this, and it's better than having a full exemption in my mind. So that's why I prefer this.
Any further comments? My comment is it would make accountable what they're doing on their property through a management plan, and so it might be just the best solution going forward. I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Councillor Thompson? Okay. So we have an amendment. How many amendments do we have, Mr. Clerk? 2?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, we only have one amendment that carried. The first amendment did not. So I would suggest the main motion as amended reads as follows: that the memorandum regarding tree protection bylaw be received, and that staff be directed to prepare and report back on a revised private tree protection bylaw, substantially in the form as attached to report number PR 14-004 with the following changes. Rules pertaining to tree removal on golf courses, similar to those contained in section 4.2 of City of Markham Tree Preservation Bylaw 2008-96.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Comments on the amended motion? Councillor Tom?
Thank you. I suppose I'll move another amendment which is respective in the same fashion as the wording that the clerk just read for Councillor Maracas' amendment, at least the beginning portion, for the trees on larger residential private property. And I move option 2 as read in our report.
And that's on page 8, Councillor?
It's on page 8.
Thank you. Option 2, could the clerk clarify that for council, please?
Thank you. If I might, could we get a seconder first before I clarify?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Maracas?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, I would suggest the amendment before us is to essentially add to Councillor Maracas' amendment so that staff would be reporting back with the following changes to the draft bylaw. So there's Councillor Maracas's pertaining to rules for trees on golf courses, and then the new amendment would add the other change that permits owners of larger properties, 0.25 hectares or greater, to remove 2 trees per 0.25 hectares in a 12-month period.
Thank you. And I have a seconder for that. Comments, questions on that amendment? Councillor Tom, no? Seeing no questions, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? In favor? Mr. Mayor, what is this saying? Hands high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That carries. Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk.
You need to vote here.
Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I would like to suggest that the trees in the Heritage District remain as is suggested in the tree protection bylaw, which is, and we're not talking about heritage trees, but we're talking about any trees in the heritage area. So I'm on page 3.
Page 3, Councillor.
Or 7.
Page 3 of the report, Councillor?
Page
Yes.
3 of the report.
Thank you. Page 7 on the agenda. Carry on, please.
I'm just looking at the chart. It is the proposed bylaw. It is the suggestion from staff, which provides, some may say overprotection of trees in the heritage area. I'd rather go
I'll
with...
get a seconder if I could, Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on. We don't need a motion if she's
Okay,
what's
so
currently in the proposed
You're maintaining what's in there? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Councillor. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm a little confused. That's fine. I think that I would like to, I think staff has done a lot of work on this. I'd rather be overly cautious in the heritage area and ensure the protection of the trees there. Removing even one tree can make a big difference.
And under the proposed, it says tree removal permit must be obtained to remove any tree within the heritage district.
Correct.
Okay, and that was in the second column under proposed, as you said, Councillor.
That's right. It's in the
just-
bylaw as is.
I'm just clarifying.
Then I may also speak to just a continuation of.
Carry on.
And I thank you for showing your pictures,
Well, thank you.
Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would also like council to look at report page 88. Sorry, 86, 88, and 90. And I want our businesses in Aurora to prosper. I want people who belong to golf clubs to enjoy them. I'm glad golf courses are replanting trees that they're removing, but this is a lot of removal. This is a tremendous amount of removal. And not only do I think it's unacceptable for the environment and whatever word you want to put on that, I also think it's unacceptable for a resident to wake up or come back to their home and see that this number of trees has been cut down. I know it's winter or fall in this picture, so it makes it seem worse, but it is worse. This should not be allowed.
I'm going to show my pictures again.
And frankly, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm sitting at this council table, and my primary concern is the residents.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll save the pictures. Councillor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is it my understanding that if we just vote on the main motion now the way it is, that the heritage part of it will be the way the proposed one would come back to us as is? Okay, thank you.
Call to question. All those in favor as amended? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, everyone. We'll see this. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before we move on to our next item, I do want to recognize the fact that we have a significant amount of work to be done in closed session this evening, and I would suggest that we have a hard stop tonight before 10 o'clock in order to us to deal with that other issue.
Okay.
So perhaps we may take a look now at what's left on the agenda and what we can accomplish between now and 10 o'clock that's time sensitive, because in talking with our CAO, we'll need at least an hour to deal with that one particular item in closed session, and it has to be done tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. We'll carry on. Item 2, tree removal and pruning. Councillor Maracus.
I'll move as is.
Seconder? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. I really only had one question. It's the same question I asked, and a point of order was put for me because I wasn't supposed to be asking it at the time. So I just wanted to ask, has Highland Gate Development Inc. been notified of the draft policy? Through you to Mr. Downey.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, I'll call Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, and I don't know whether Mr. Downey or Mr. Tree could answer them. Did I miss Appendix 4, Policy D? Is it part of this report? If the answer is yes, I'll just go back and look at it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, where are you?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 13 of the report, the last bullet in the 6 series.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you referring to 6.8, the last bullet?
Yes, please.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Tree has made 3 presentations this evening. We have isolated the tree compensation policy from all of the other tree policies that we would like council to consider that are on the webpage. As Mr. Tree stated, it's several hundred pages.
Thank you. I remember that.
So
Note, it's at the end of the
that's where you'll
report.
find that. That's where you'll find those appendix.
Thank you. On page 14,
Yes, page 14 of the agenda is on page
page
162.
14 of the report.
Okay. Councillor, carry on.
I'm just wondering, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Downey, there is somewhere in here, and it may not be in this specific spot, where we are going to allow the planting of several trees, several smaller trees, to make up for a tree that's been taken down. And my question is, does that wouldn't provide the same tree coverage, the same leaf coverage as a mature tree? So I don't understand why we're allowing that.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you are correct. Initially, there would be a loss of tree cover. However, with the compensation of several smaller trees in order to take over or compensate for one larger tree, the tree canopy eventually would be increased over and above that of the tree that was removed.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. On page 11 of the report, number 4 at the top. We're proposing to allow the removal of trees to accommodate things such as, I can understand sewers and roadways and utilities. We don't have any choice in that. But we're also allowing it for buildings and driveways. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, could you, Mr. Downey or Mr. Tree, could you speak to why we have buildings and driveways in the same category as necessary utilities and infrastructure?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's all part of the development application, and quite often buildings are restricted as where they can go on a particular property, as well as the driveway access. So it very much falls within the same lines as servicing the property, and there are instances where, unfortunately, that's unavoidable as to whether or not trees are removed because of where the building envelope must be in accordance with the provisions of the development application.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm also assuming that this policy would not allow a developer to clear cut a property.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would not be approving clear cutting. There's no reason to look at clear cutting a particular property unless there was some extenuating circumstances with regards to remediation of the site that may be required or some other unusual situation, but typically that is not something that we would consider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Downey, it seems to me that we allowed the area north of St. John Side Road between Yonge and Bayview to be pretty much clear cut by developers.
Is that a comment?
Well,
Question,
in
Mr.
light
Downey?
of Mr. Downey's comment, it's a question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the connotation with regards to clear cutting is that there's no determination or consideration with regards to trees. That is not the case. Consideration was given to the trees in light of the development application that was presented before council. It eliminated or reduced our ability to save a number of trees within that particular area. And the consequences of that may be a vast removal of trees. However, that is not the premise that we move forward and then come in afterwards saying, now that we've got the trees all cut down, we can now move forward with our development.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Any further questions? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, I'm just going to reference section 4.4 of the policy. And essentially, it calls upon council to be an arbitrator in the case of an appeal. If a permit's denied and someone's not happy with it, they come to council. You know, this term we set up a tribunal to deal with appeals, now specifically more towards bylaw. But, you know, given this and some of the other encroachment issues that we've had where, you know, we really are arbitrating, has there been some consideration perhaps of moving these appeals to the tribunal instead of bringing them before council?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, not to my knowledge. It is something we can certainly consider if council wishes to consider that. But we have always looked at council as the appeal body within any policy. And whenever a policy is questioned, we generally bring that forward to council.
Councillor?
I think that would be my only comment. You know, I guess I've not had an opportunity to attend any of the appeal tribunals, see how it's working, how it's dealing with some of the bylaw issues, but given some of the issues that have come before council, it may be a more efficient manner in which to deal with these issues rather than coming to council. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. I'm just trying to think if I recall one coming before us in our term. Okay. But that wasn't on public property. This is the boulevard, Mr. Downey, the public property this one speaks to on 4.4?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, municipal property is within our purview, and if we feel that it cannot be removed, the applicant should have an appeal process, and we're recommending that they appeal before council. But it's our decision as to, well, it's council's decision as to whether or not they wish to uphold that appeal or not. It's the director's decision as to whether or not it's permitted or denied.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. We'll now move to item 3. That was pulled by Councillor Gardner. Councillor, would you move the motion?
Thank you. Move as is.
Could I have a seconder? Councillor Maracas. Councillor, you have the floor.
And also, I'd like to thank the staff for all of the work they've done on these 3 policies. It's a huge amount of effort and research. Thank you.
Councillor?
So on page 2 of the report, I'm not clear. It's the second last paragraph. Notwithstanding the policy language regarding compensation for trees removed. The method is based on compensation for loss of trunk diameter such that an equal number of trees totaling the trunk diameter that's been removed. So if we do that, again, Mr. Downey, I guess it comes back to the same point. We're getting the same, perhaps, total number of tree diameter, but we're not getting that tree canopy, that mature tree canopy that really adds a lot to the environmental value. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that could be done there.
Mr. Downey?
We were talking about planting more mature trees, the 48 trees that were cut down on the south end of town. We were told that we could plant more mature trees. So is that not possible instead of having a whole bunch of little trees together?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Chair, with regards to compensation, we can plant any diameter of trees, provided it works out towards the compensation. So if we were looking at equal compensation, you cut down a 30-inch tree, we could look at three 10-inch trees, or 10 3-inch trees, or 15 2-inch trees, or whatever we wanted. So there could be a variety of different areas. The only concern is we want to make sure that wherever trees we put in and to replace them are going to survive, and that they're appropriate. And so the larger the tree, the less likelihood of it being able to survive the transport. So we will be looking at smaller trees. That doesn't mean we'll be looking at saplings at all. We'll be looking at trees that will create some cover initially, but as I stated earlier, we don't see ourselves making up the loss of tree canopy immediately, but eventually we will create a greater canopy than was lost with the removal of that initial tree.
2 points, thank you, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The first one is, if we were going to try and use a mature tree with a mature tree canopy, that would be more expensive than a lot of smaller trees. So from what I'm hearing, that we would have much less success planting a mature tree and having it survive. That is not the vision here at all. The vision here is smaller trees.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the vision here is compensation. Whether that comes in the form of a number of smaller trees or larger trees, the issue is compensation and what we feel is an appropriate compensation. So, for instance, we often go in and plant larger trees within certain areas in order to get an immediate effect, and we've done that in several instances if those trees are available. And if they're not, then we need to go to smaller stock. But the main focus with regards to this policy is compensation, not whether or not we look at planting mature trees or as larger trees as we can in replacing a mature tree being cut down.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Downey. My comment is that when we're looking at compensation, we should look at what we're losing. And if we are losing a mature tree, then, as there's been said at this table, we can plant another mature tree, and if it dies, we can plant another one, and we can just keep doing that. And we should be covered for that cost, because at the end of the day, that would provide the appropriate loss of tree canopy, and we wouldn't have to wait for years for that tree canopy to replace itself. Anyway, I find that part of this interesting and not acceptable to me. Thank you.
Other comments on this? Mr. Downey and Mr. Tree, I remember sitting with you in the office and first saying about this urban study strategy, and how I appreciate you doing this. It's very important, and it's being adopted in urban centers everywhere. The value of an urban forest in a town. I mean, we know that with climate change, it's very important, and we can save energy. It absorbs carbon dioxide. It cleans the air. It absorbs rainwater. I mean, it's invaluable. And to have a study and a strategy going forward to measure our canopy to see if we're going the right way, and that's increasing it. I noticed in some other studies that they have a strategy to plant trees and to manage. So they use their parks to plant trees. We do have nurseries to help augment the critical loss of our ash trees. Are we going forward with a strategy there? I mean, we could use golf courses to plant trees as well. They do that in Vancouver. I think the more trees we plant, the better we're going to be in the strategy in the long run. So, Mr. Downey, could I ask you that question?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with regards to, and this once again goes to compensation, if you recall when Mr. Tree was making his delegation, he stated that we do make every effort possible to replant the compensated trees on the property that the original trees were removed from. However, in some cases that's not possible. So compensation comes in the form of money, and we use those funds in order to purchase plant material that we can plant within our parks and open spaces and create the tree canopy in those areas outside of the development area where the trees are removed.
Thank you. And with the, Mr. Tree, would you like to come down and comment on that?
I'm sitting there just waiting to go. Sorry. Just the comment on your remarks about compensation and planting nurseries and so forth. We do have nurseries. We have 2 of them, and we are also doing annual plantings. And if you look at the recommendations in the urban tree study in the reports that are online, you can see how we've addressed those comments on the tree study and the recommendations. They talk about planting plans and targets. So we have identified all of that.
And while I've got you there, the trees that we plant in our nursery, because we use spade technology to transplant those trees?
Those trees will be moved with spade at some point.
And so the spade vary in size. So if the bigger the tree, the bigger the root ball, the bigger and healthier the tree you have.
Correct.
And I also note that the success of those in the industry are quite high. If you do consideration and minimize the drying and make sure that you set them up with a bit of mulch and make sure they're moist in the first critical parts of the transplant, because it's so relatively close and the soil is so like, it really has a greater success rate than, say, the potted plants some other places may get from Virginia or something like that.
Mr. Chair, you're correct. Mr. Chair, our success rate in planting is probably close to 100% success.
And they flourish, and that's why I pointed out that autumn blaze. So you do select certain species that do well in the environment and diversify, and that's all part of a good strategy.
You have the opportunity to look through the schedules. It's pretty well laid out for you how and what we do.
Yes, I got a nice big tree, and
on planting.
it just took off.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Councillor Maracus.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to quickly say, if anyone has the opportunity to watch maybe a video or anything on one of the spades that take out one of the big trees, it's quite amazing how it goes about doing it, and they just transplant it. It really truly is amazing to watch. So
thank you.
And a very high success rate. I agree.
Well, I worked for a tree, and we had 9-foot diameters. We could take trees that were 15 inches in diameter, and we guaranteed them for 2 years. So you don't do that unless you got a good success rate.
And just one more comment, Mr. Chair. I just want to say a great job by the town. Also, the tree in front of my house went down during the storm not too long ago.
Ice storm?
Yeah, not the ice storm. It was just that we had a violent storm during the summer. And the tree went down, lightning hit it, dropped. The town was there the next day, cleaned it up, took it out, and the replacement tree within not even a month is up. And we had a nice list that was sent to us in a letter stating which tree would we prefer out of this list. And so, I just thought that was great, and I like the way we go about doing that. So
we have a staff that really is into trees. All right. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. We're moving right along. Item 4. We can't do it in 20 minutes? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, there's nothing, considering this would be on the council agenda, there's nothing preventing someone from putting this recommendation on the floor, voting, and then discussing it again at council next week, as we've done in the past. I'm just saying, that is an option.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson is just cueing us on time and the importance of trying to do this. Maybe do the quick wins, Councillor. Is that what you're suggesting? Do you have a role there? Or should I ask Mr. CAO?
I'd bring item 7 forward. It's a sign variance. I think the discussion's less. Item 10, I just don't believe that this one will take 15 minutes. I know there's been a considerable amount of conversation and emails and so forth, so let's deal with the quicker ones, move forward, and then move into closed session. If somehow we move quickly, that's fine, but happy to have a full discussion on it next week.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Mr. Chair, this probably will take longer than 20 minutes. I would just like to say that this first came on the agenda in September, and then again in October, and now we've got it again. And there are a lot of, as you know, residents waiting for this. So could this be placed right up front on the agenda for council?
That would be duly noted. I think we can bring that up at council. Why not?
The clerk is looking at
Well,
certain.
We're not doing the tree bylaw, so we do save a lot there. Yes?
I'll make a motion to move item 7 forward.
Thank you. All those in favor? Oh, seconded? Mayor Daw? All those in favor? Opposed? Item 7 was pulled by Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That's a mouthful, you know.
Thank you.
So
Can we have a motion?
I can't move it as is.
Councillor Thompson, seconded. Mayor Daw?
Okay, there's a little laughing going on tonight.
It's the brownie.
My concern about this is that we've kind of got ourselves in a difficult situation because we've allowed it, a sign variance for LA Fitness. Now we're in a position, I think if I'm correct reading the report, where we can't deny this. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's up to council's discretion whether or not they approve it or deny it. Staff is recommending approval. It's, there are numerous commercial developments along Bayview from Wellington north up to the Superstore where numerous variances have been granted over the last 10 to 15 years. So this is not unlike any other development along there, as well as the Smart Centers development, whereby there was a signed bylaw amendment specifically for that development. And it's specifically for these multi-building developments where you have parking lots on the interior, you have single tenant buildings, and there have been numerous variances granted over the last years. As well, moving forward, the proposed sign bylaw, these signs would not require a variance under the proposed sign bylaw if it's approved going forward.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
I would just, I support the recommendation as Ms. Van Leeuwen has indicated. Anybody who's seen a number of the buildings along Bayview and the commercials, we have in the past approved them. There are numerous ones with signs on 3 or 4 sides. And so it is in keeping, and that's essentially the conclusion of this, is that it really is no different than many of the other buildings that are there. And so we're applying it equally.
Thank you. I see no other comments. I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. I think we can go to item 10. Will we carry on, or do I have to ask for an exempt? Could I have a motion to bring item 10 up? Councillor Kim, seconded. Councillor Tom. All those in favor of moving it forward? Opposed? That carries. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this one.
Thank you. Move as is.
Seconder, Mayor Daw. Councillor Gardner, you have the floor.
Thank you. On page 2 of the report, it's a question and a comment. Project complete August 2015. Is the Aurora Family Leisure Complex project complete?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for all intents and purposes, the project is complete. There is some minor coordination items that staff are working through from an operational perspective. The contractor is off-site, and the only outstanding item which we've identified in the report is we're still waiting for a response on their claim for delay. We've requested additional information probably more than 6 weeks ago and haven't received anything. So I think what's going to happen once the legal staff are back in from their wedding, we're going to probably have a conversation around how to close that aspect of the contract out and take it off of this report.
Thank you, Mr. Simonauskas. Councillor?
I just need to be clear that I understand this.
Okay.
So the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, according to our contract with the contractor, is complete?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Simonauskas.
And thank you as a follow-up, and where do all of the, everything that wasn't in order that had to be done under this contract is now 100% done by the contractor?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's either complete or the contractor has agreed to pay us or reimburse us for works that we can complete on their behalf. So we have identified all the issues. We've had a final meeting with them probably more than a month ago now, and we've basically wrapped up the project from their perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonauskas.
Councillor Marakis?
So it's my understanding then through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Simonauskas, the contractor will not be stepping foot back into the AFLC.
Mr. Simonauskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if there's any warranty issues or issues related to their workmanship, they will be back. So those issues, there is a 1-year warranty on the project, so we still have that aspect of it. But as far as what they had contracted to do, that work is essentially complete.
Thank you. No, sorry, just as I don't really want to get into it. I'll wait till it comes back. I'm still just really annoyed at the fact that they're going to be looking for costs as far as delays, since they're the ones that delayed it. So I just throw that back out there again.
Councillor Thompson?
Just a quick question through you to Mr. Simonauskas. When you say a 1-year warranty, what's the date on that? Is that from project completion, August of 2015 to 2016, or how does that 1-year warranty work?
Mr. Simonauskas?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's based on substantial completion, which was in February. However, there were a couple of items that that lingered beyond the substantial completion date that we've asked for extended warranties on. So for all intents and purposes, any works that were completed after that date that were of significant concern, such as the roof, as an example, we've asked for an extended warranty for those elements. So we're trying to figure out a way to be fair, both for the work that was completed on time, as well as things that we should have an extended warranty based on their delays or issues with their completion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Mr. Clerk, we have number 14.
No, that was done.
No, 15 was done.
14, yes, bring forward 14.
So can I have a motion to bring 14 forward? Councillor Thompson, seconded. Councillor Tom, all those in favor of moving item 14 forward? Opposed? In favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. In favor of moving it forward? 5. Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Gardner, item 14.
Thank you. I'll be brief on this. I just have
Can I have a motion to receive, please?
motion, yes.
Seconded. Councillor Tom. Thank you. Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey, or perhaps as a comment, but through you to Mr. Downey, I don't ever remember granting a cultural grant to a religious organization to celebrate a religious holiday. Is this the first time we've done that?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we did a similar thing last year. This is the second year that they've applied for this, and it's to offset the costs of permitting the senior center.
Offset costs of renting?
Correct.
So then any religious group could come forward to the town and ask for something similar?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes, they need to put an application in, and if they qualify, yes.
Councillor?
Thank you. And the qualification is they must be to serve, so the residents who are celebrating this, who are attending this, 75% of them must come from Aurora?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's the criteria. At least 75% must come from Aurora. I don't know whether this was 75 plus, but they must have a minimum threshold.
Thank you. It used to be 80%, but it's now been changed to, when did it change to 75%? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with regards to the approval when we approved the new policy.
Councillor?
Thank you. I don't remember that. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, we have one item left. Do you have any suggestions? We have 8 minutes.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, I would suggest, because as been suggested, closed session might be quite lengthy, and given the procedural bylaw rules, that merely, as we have done in the past, refer that item directly to Council.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Marakis. Councillor, who pulled that? Councillor Thompson. Any questions, comments about receiving? Seeing none, all those in favor? Last one. In favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you very much, Council. We'll do new... We're not going to want to do that. Let's do new business now. New business starting on my left. Councillor Kim. Seeing none. Councillor Tom. Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one. I know I asked it last week, but our regional representative wasn't here. I'm just wondering if there's any more information. No, during the council meeting. No, you weren't here. Yeah, see, you're confusing me. Oh my. Okay, let's get through this. I was just curious if there's been any more information as far as the Georgina Thane smelter.
On the smelter, Mr. Mayor, do you have any
Any more information? Has any information come forward since the last time we spoke as far as the Georgina smelter? No?
To you, Mr. Chair, no, there is not.
Thank you.
I did send you some information.
Yes, you did, and I appreciate that. I was just wondering if there was any more updates. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, new business? Councillor Gardner? Mayor Daw?
I'm just wondering if I should do this under a notice of motion or now that it requires every new homeowner in Aurora to plant a bunch of trees.
Notice of motion.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a question. I asked Ms. Van Leeuwen earlier about our bylaw on parking on the street, and I had a resident get ticketed at 5 in the morning, so your bylaw is right on that. I was hoping that we might be able to extend some sort of education and leniency, and you had told me that we had just passed a bylaw that we weren't going to do that, but asked for people to contribute a toy or pay the fine.
To you, Mr. Chair. If you recall, last week at Council, there was a report on the agenda that recommended that staff proceed with a Toys for Ticket campaign in lieu of warning tickets for the first 2 weeks of our overnight parking restrictions. And so that was carried by Council, and we have implemented the Toys for Tickets program, and I'm pleased to say that we've already received 4 donations. They are out in our lobby as of today.
How many tickets did you issue on the first day?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of how many. I can get that number for you if you like.
I would appreciate that.
Certainly.
And Mr. Simonauskas, find where the plow is. Is that a program we've got going now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. It's called Where's My Plow, and it'll be active once this was the first time the plows go out. They'll be on that website, on that page.
And have we changed the start date of the bylaw, Ms. Van Leeuwen? And when was the last time?
To you, Mr. Chair, you mean when the overnight parking restrictions
November 15th.
Commence,
yeah.
Which is November 15th. Those restrictions, I believe, have been in place at least 10 years.
I'm just wondering, with climate change, we might be able to shrink that, or at least go and find out when the first significant snowfall is. So maybe it's something we can address later. I just think with the temperature at 17 degrees tomorrow, I'm going to get ticketed because it might snow. All right, Council, we have a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Marakis. All in favor? Okay, it carries. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Elliott has.
Mr. Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly under other business, I committed to circulate additional budget detail information tonight. I discovered late in the process, after they've been printed and handed to me, that there needs to be a change made, and so we'll be redistributing these first thing in the morning through your mailbox and by email if we can.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Okay, I apologize for the delay.
Motion to adjourn? Oh, no. Yeah, motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Marakis, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. I think staff is all done, except for Samantha.
Can I get a time check from the clerk? Is that